Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Software Engineer K here, and we've had some amazing news last night. We had the news that the VeVe NFTs are moving over to Immutable X. So I'm going to be going in depth into how Immutable X works, why they chose it, and I'm just going to go into a bit of a technical deep dive in just to try and explain to everyone in more simpler terms, kind of the whole logic behind Immutable X as well. And I'm just going to use a few case studies. For example, the GitHub as well for Immutable X. They've got their card game, so that is all publicly available. As well as that, just sticking on the point of carbon neutrality. So some people are kind of confused by how Immutable X remains carbon neutral as well. But at the same time, I did also want to touch on the new drop happening tomorrow, and we'll wrap up with our daily price analysis. So without further ado, we'll go straight into Twitter. So we had the announcement yesterday. Yesterday night, I saw this right as I was asleep, about to sleep, and yeah, the price of OMI just shot up. And that's something that you would expect. People tend to FOMO; they'll buy on news, or they'll buy on any kind of hype. So this is pretty cool, but I have heard of people who kind of they're not quite sure, why they chose Immutable X, or what is the true benefit. And you guys can probably see this information already, so I'm not going to spend too much time, just because that's not really going to add value. But we know that there are zero fees. You can set your own trading fees as well, so VeVe can do that. And main issue was scalability. We know that with a million users on the VeVe app, we are going to need scalability if there's people trading peer to peer as well as on the secondary market, and then it causes another issue if you have people who are buying NFTs from VeVe directly. All of that mixed together, you're going to have some issues if you don't scale up accordingly. And we know that there is security within Ethereum because it is a layer 2 solution. So I'll touch a little bit on that as well. But really, the whole concept is Immutable X. VeVe has kind of gone for this solution mainly because the scalability is there, and that's because it uses something called it kind of batches up transactions into a single transaction. So the transactions occur off of the main Ethereum chain, because that is the point at which the fees are incurred. So because the transactions happen outside of the Ethereum chain, there's no need for gas. So what is done on Ethereum is the whole kind of validating that transaction, the proof part of it. And that is kind of where we're going now with these layer 2 solutions to ensure that Ethereum can become scalable as well as help reduce gas fees, is if you can kind of take the transactions off of the main chain while still employing the security aspect of it. So that's kind of where VeVe has kind of gone with this. We know that Immutable X has partnered with other companies as well. One of those is Epic.gg. People have been messaging me about Epic as a potential competitor for VeVe. So that is pretty cool. I know they don't do exactly the same thing as VeVe. They're kind of more in the game space, but they are classed as collectibles technically. But the whole concept is, we're using something called roll-ups, where if I was to explain this really simply, imagine if you have a load of laundry to do. You've got 10 pieces of laundry, and you can either wash each individual item one at a time in your washing machine, which is what is done right now, or you could batch it up into one big batch, throw all of it in the washing machine, and then wash it. And that's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money. Well, money on the water bill and electricity bill for running your washing machine 10% of what you would have ran it. And you would then kind of, as long as you have some way of validating that what you have thrown into that washing machine in one big batch is your 10 pieces of laundry, there's nothing else thrown in there, or there's nothing missing, then that's perfectly fine. And that's kind of where the Ethereum part comes in, is that whole kind of proof aspect. So if we jump straight to Immutable's, the GitHub, where we can see the minting. So this is pretty cool. And this kind of goes straight into my point on scalability, not just for the product, but for moving forwards, how VeVe is going to handle uncertainties. Now, typically historically in any kind of application development, we have something called monoliths, where you have all of your code base kind of wrapped up in one big chunk. And now we have kind of, been progressing to something known as microservices. So you would have a service, which is usually some kind of interface with an API. And that's exactly what Immutable X provides. They have provided an API which allows you to mint, it allows you to, trade, whatever. So it's really, really simple how they've done it. And what's really, really cool about this is if VeVe had to kind of integrate a solution, very manually, they had to kind of code this custom solution into their existing code base. When it comes to the future, if they did want to switch, it would be very, very difficult. They have to kind of undo a lot of stuff, and fixing bugs when something's manual like that is also a nightmare. If they just have a service which uses Immutable X's API directly, then in the future they can just swap out the API for another one. Maybe they want to go somewhere else. And also fixing bugs tends to be a bit easier as well, because you no longer have these kind of dependencies. The dependencies have been inverted, so that's what we refer to as inversion of control as well. So you are no longer depending directly on this kind of this bit of functionality. You can always swap it out. You can change it for testing quite easily as well. You can have like a fake version to use for testing, and that's basically the whole kind of benefit when it comes to development. And people, although the end user like yourself and myself, we're not benefiting from the developers having an easier time when it comes to fixing bugs, when it comes to adding new features. If their development time is increased, and their bug resolving time is decreased, then the end user will benefit from it. If we have a look at gem to OMI, for example, so OMI to gem, for example, a lot of that code I imagine was written by contractors at quite an early stage of the development, and they are still optimizing certain things. OMI to gem is going to be coming hashtag soon, from what I know, but we know that that is one of those things where they have to be very, very careful with how they test it. It has to be tested very thoroughly. There has to be a lot of stress testing and user acceptance testing, just because if they mess that up, that it's not a simple case of hey, we just take this offline. Like there will be a lot of work in order to compensate users if users somehow lose OMI in the middle of their transaction, or accidentally gain gems. It's just it is a huge hassle. But yeah, that is pretty cool. So like I said, gas fees will be reduced, and what is really nice is if you have a look, traditionally there are 490 million kilowatt hours of electricity consumed, which is quite a lot. But now there is only 1,000 kilowatt hours, and that comes out to equivalent of 844 kilograms of CO2, which is 475,000 times less than without Immutable X. And that is a lot. Now, just because there is a significant decrease doesn't mean that is purely, zero carbon. So the way that they make up for it is what a lot of companies do in the industry is, if you imagine, every company has an allowance for how much they're allowed to pollute. Now, some companies will pollute less than others. So what they can do is they can sell the credits that they're allowed to pollute to companies that are polluting more. So if you imagine it like you're working for a company and you have 20 days of holiday, and you save up your holiday, you don't use it. At the end of the year, you kind of have to use it, but you choose not to. There might be an option where you can sell that holiday to a colleague of yours, or you can sell it back to the company for money. And some people do actually do that. So it's the same way. So this is exactly how Tesla works. So, carbon credits is essentially just a credit that is, signified by amount of carbon that you're allowed to emit, and you can sell those credits to other companies. And Tesla, I tend to talk quite a lot about Tesla, but they made about 7% of their revenue in 2020 last year purely by selling carbon credits, because they get a lot allocated a certain amount of credits for how much they're allowed to pollute, and they tend not to use that much because it is a company based around renewables along with AI and other stuff. So they just sell their credits, and some other companies, they will also do that. So that's pretty cool. I just love seeing these Reese memes. There's quite a lot of these popping around. And now on the point of the new drop tomorrow. So we have had the announcement. We know that Batgirl is going to be the common, so I'm pretty excited for that because that's my favorite one out of the lot. And I personally, I may not actually buy this on the drop. I'll probably wait and pick it up on the market. Catwoman, also a really cool one, 50 gems, 10,000 editions of that. I may wait to purchase that. I'll see. I'll probably will buy it if it's available, but Mira, I think I'll go for this one. But we know that from the last drop, the Batman Rare had around similar number of mints, and that one ended up going for retail. I bought one literally on the same day of the drop on the market for like 65 gems. So someone made like 5 gems profit off that. Supergirl, I imagine a lot of people are going to be, well, most people are going to be going for this, unless they're going for the less common ones because they're trying to go for low mints. Then, yeah, I reckon this one will probably sell out in 10 seconds as well, but it is what it is. This will probably get relisted on the marketplace for like 20 to 30 gems more than what it's listed for initially, so I think that'll be fine. Now, just sticking on that point, what I did also want to touch on is our daily price analysis as well. So what we have here is we know that OMI to Bitcoin has been roughly correlated together. So again, we are trading on a very flat line still, but we have moved up a little bit, and that is just because of the news on the Immutable X stuff. Now, if we go straight to our chart here, we know that, well, yesterday I drew this wedge, and this was where I ended the video. So usually on a wedge, you either get a huge decrease because the sellers will outweigh the buyers, or you usually get a pump. And it's really funny how the technicals lined up with the news, because right on that, right on that point of that wedge, we had a huge pump upwards all the way up to about 0.4 cents. And if I just extend this trend line, we are still pretty much following this trend line here, this upward trend. So you see we're bouncing on it. But I think that we will now actually continue to move upwards, just because we have quite a few areas of potential good news coming up. We know that there is supposed to be a new exchange that's going to push the price up. OMI to Gems should be coming very, very, very soon. I know that Reese, I think it was yesterday, said that it will be, he said he'll have a bit more news within the day. I didn't follow up with that, but I believe, given how much time they've had, I think it's nearly done. So we have that, and they can just pull out something else. Like, there's so many cool things that they can pull out. We're moving into season 2, so there's we are in season 2, so there's going to be more first appearances as well to look forward to. So I am pretty excited. I personally believe OMI is very undervalued right now. So I'm just trying to fill up as much as I can, because once they've started marketing to the mass market, I believe it is gonna just go upwards from there. But we'll see, because there's always other things. Regulation is something that I did also want to mention. Now, Joe Biden has kind of had his administration look at regulating cryptocurrencies. I think that's going to be amazing for OMI, because a lot of these meme coins, like I've been saying in pretty much every other video, is they will die. Regulation will pretty much end them, just because a lot of these meme currencies, the teams behind them, they're not following certain legislations that they should be, because a lot of them aren't technically legitimate companies. They're just a group of guys who have copied and pasted some code, slapped it onto Binance Smart Chain, and they claim to have a legitimate project, or they just straight up rug pull, and there's nothing that can be done by it. So yeah, there is going to be some regulation coming, and it is going to benefit OMI. So again, that's something not a lot of people don't really think about. They just think about what features are offered, like how fast the supply can burn, how fast the price is going to go up, but they don't think about regulation. And we've seen the effect that regulation can have, especially when you look at a company like Ripple, when it lost like 90% of its valuation, which has now gained back because they're probably going to win the lawsuit. So that's pretty cool. But that's everything I want to go through today, guys. I will also be on the VeVe Discord tonight, so do tune in for that. That will probably be happening right after this video has streamed, so that's pretty cool. And please do like and subscribe to support the content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.